Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, you and I are going to unpack Autodesk Maya, that incredibly powerful piece of 3D computer graphics software.
Yeah.
Think of this as your personal guided tour. We want to understand what Maya is really all about, who's using it, to create these amazing things, and maybe why it's held its position as such a major player for so long.
Exactly. And we've looked through a really interesting mix of material for this one. Articles giving the big picture, Wikipedia for some of the foundational stuff, even a transcript from a YouTube tutorial to see how people actually learn it.
Right.
Plus, some pretty candid discussions on Reddit, and of course, info straight from Autodesk itself.
Okay, so your mission, if you choose to accept it, and you're here, so you have, is to get a really solid grasp on Maya's significance in the 3D world. We want to give you the essentials without, making you feel like you're drowning in technical jargon. Okay, let's get right into it then. What is Autodesk Maya? Just in simple terms.
Put simply, Maya is professional level software. It's for creating and, manipulating 3D elements. So that covers everything. Building the model's characters, objects, animating how they move, simulating physics like how fluids flow or how cloth drapes over something.
Right, the physics part.
Yeah, and finally rendering those creations into images or animations. It's incredibly versatile. Think about, those amazing special effects in movies.
Yeah, jaw-dropping stuff.
Or the immersive worlds in video games, even those really realistic 3D models architects use. Maya's often the engine running behind the scenes.
One of the articles, it described it as the Swiss Army knife of the 3D industry. That analogy really stuck with me.
That's a good one, yeah.
It sounds like it can pretty much handle any 3D task you throw at it.
Yeah.
And it's all from Autodesk, which is a name most people in design, engineering, they'll recognize that name.
That's right. And it's designed to fit into, lots of different workflows. Whether you're on Windows, a Mac, even Linux sometimes, Maya is available.
Okay, so we have a sense of what Maya is, but who are the actual people, the industries that rely on it day in, day out? You might immediately picture, the big Hollywood studios doing blockbusters and the huge game developers making those massive AAA games.
And that's definitely a huge part of its user base, no question. But Maya's reach is much wider than just that. We're talking individual animators, 3D modelers.
Okay.
They use it for the core stuff, like bringing characters and objects to life with keyframe animation, building the skeleton underneath with rigging, even digitally sculpting really fine details.
Then you've got the VFX artists, the magicians, right? Creating those incredible explosions, water simulations, particle effects.
Exactly. And they often use specific tools within Maya, like Bifrost for fluids and N-cloth for fabrics behaving realistically.
Game developers, too, you mentioned.
Oh, absolutely. Game developers are deeply integrated. It's a crucial tool for creating game assets, the detailed characters, but also the low-poly environments that need to run smoothly in engines like Unity or Unreal.
Right, performance is key there.
Yeah, Maya helps them find that balance between looking good and running well.
What's interesting is we even saw in that YouTube transcript architectural visualization in Maya Part 1, how designers are using it, taking flat 2D blueprints and turning them into these incredibly lifelike 3D building models. That must be huge for clients.
Absolutely. It gives them a much better feel for the final space. And we shouldn't forget students and hobbyists either.
True.
For anyone serious about getting into 3D creation, learning Maya provides a really, really strong foundation. The skills they transfer across different creative fields, it might seem, powerful and maybe a bit intimidating.
Yeah, what's complex?
But the sources suggested it's actually quite approachable for beginners who are, really willing to put in the effort to learn the craft.
Okay, so it's versatile, used by a broad range of creators. But the big question then is, why choose Maya? There are other 3D tools out there. What makes Maya stand out?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Think of learning Maya like learning a universal creative language.
Okay.
Whether you want to work in film, games, advertising, design, knowing Maya gives you a pretty significant edge because it's just so widely adopted.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. One of the strongest arguments, and it came up again and again in our sources, including that Reddit discussion, is that Maya is considered an industry standard. We're talking top studios, Pixar, DreamWorks, Ubisoft, Blue Sky, Framestore, MPC, ILM. These are the heavyweights.
Yeah, the big names. And Maya is deeply, deeply embedded in their production pipelines.
Why, though? Why do these huge studios stick with it?
Well, it's worth thinking about that. It's not just that it's what many pros learned on, although that's part of it. Maya has these really powerful scripting capabilities, especially with Python, and a kind of modular setup.
The customization.
Exactly. It allows these big studios to heavily customize it for their specific, often incredibly complex workflows. That level of adaptability, which, maybe newer software is still catching up on, that's a huge reason for its continued dominance in major production.
And the scale of projects.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-blowing. Framestore and NPC working on characters like Rocket Raccoon and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Regrettable detail, yeah.
And thinking about the complexity of Thanos in Avengers, Infinity War, you have to assume Maya was crucial there.
Highly likely.
And ILM, Star Wars, Jurassic Park, relying on it for animation. Even those massive kaiju in Pacific Rim or the Transformer.
And it's not just VFX. Our research showed loads of Academy Award-winning animated films and even nominees for the upcoming 2025 Oscars have Maya at their core.
Wow.
That Reddit thread really hammered home its position, especially for tricky stuff like character rigging, fluid animation, and just how customizable it is overall.
So beyond being the industry standard, which is obviously huge, another big plus seems to be that it's this all-in-one creative powerhouse. You're not constantly jumping between different programs.
Exactly. It pulls together modeling, animation, simulation with powerful tools like Bifrost and Encloth, built-in and rendering, often using Arnold, which is also integrated, all within one interface.
Streamlines things.
Yeah, it really streamlines the whole creative process, lets artists stay focused.
And for artists who are really meticulous, Maya seems to offer incredible creative freedom. One article highlighted the control you get over tiny details like subtle facial expressions or the way fabric moves.
Right, which brings up an important point about careers. All this capability and industry adoption, it translates directly into a wide range of career paths.
Makes sense.
Being proficient in Maya opens doors. Animation studios, game development, architectural firms doing visualizations, even advertising agencies needing cool 3D content.
Okay, let's zoom in a bit on what makes it so powerful. What are some of the core features that give it this versatility?
Well, at its foundation, you've got a really robust set of advanced 3D modeling tools.
Okay.
Maya lets artists create both organic shapes, characters, creatures, and hard surface models, like cars or buildings. It supports different approaches too. There's polygonal modeling using vertices, edges, faces.
The basics.
Yeah, the most common way. But also sculpting tools for more intuitive shaping and NURBS, non-uniform, rational B-splines for mathematically precise curves and surfaces. That's really useful in product design, for instance.
Right, where precision is key.
Exactly.
And then there's animation and rigging.
Yeah.
Our sources really seem to emphasize Maya's strength here.
Oh yeah, definitely. It has comprehensive tools for setting keyframes to define motion, creating and editing motion paths, and building those complex rigging systems, the skeletons that let animators manipulate models realistically.
And for bringing physics into it, you mentioned Bifrost and Encloth earlier.
Precisely. Those are powerful dynamic simulation tools. Bifrost is great for realistic liquids, smoke, fire, and Cloth handles believable fabric and other deformable stuff.
And getting the final image out rendering. The integrated Arnold renderer, that seems like a big plus.
It is. It allows users to generate photorealistic images with really sophisticated control over lighting, shadows, materials, right inside Maya.
And for visual effects specifically?
It's a workhorse. It can handle incredibly complex particle systems, explosions, dust clouds, that sort of thing. It's a staple in VFX pipelines.
And you mentioned scripting earlier, Python and MEL.
Yes, and that extensibility is absolutely key. As someone on Reddit pointed out, being able to customize and automate workflows is a major reason it's still such a dominant force in the industry. They build custom tools on top of it.
Gotcha. Now, for someone maybe just thinking about diving into Maya, what's that first experience like? What hits you when you open it up?
Oh, yeah, it's true. When you first open Maya, the interface can feel, a bit overwhelming, like stepping into a 747 cockpit or something.
Yeah, so many buttons.
But the trick is to break it down. Setting up a project first is a good habit, like organizing your workbench. Keeps things tidy.
Our beginner's guide source walked through some key elements. You've got the viewports, your windows into the 3D world, different angles, then the outliner, which is like a list of everything in your scene, how it's organized.
Yeah, the hierarchy. And over on the right, usually you have the attribute editor and the channel box. That's where you tweak the properties of whatever you've selected.
Okay.
Down at the bottom, the timeline, crucial for animation, where you see your keyframes. And up top, the main menus. modeling, rigging, animation, rendering. They group all the tools.
I always found the shelves helpful starting out. Those customizable rows of icons.
Oh yeah, the shelves are great. Quick access to common tools, polygon modeling, sculpting, texturing. You can make your own too.
And just learning a few basic shortcuts, right? Like W for move, E for rotate, R for scale, and using Alt in the mouse to tumble around the viewports.
Absolutely. Those navigation shortcuts are essential. W, E, R, Alt, plus mouse buttons. You'll use them constantly. It's all about gradually getting familiar with these core parts, like learning the layout of a workshop. Once you know where things are, it gets much easier.
So once you're past that initial, whoa, look at all this phase,
Yeah.
what are some fundamental concepts a new Maya user really needs to get their head around?
Okay, at the very foundation is just understanding 3D geometry. You're working with meshes.
Right.
Meshes are made of vertices, the points and space edges connecting the points, and faces, the flat surfaces formed by the edges. And tools like extrude, bevel, bridge, those are how you manipulate these building blocks.
And then transformations, moving, rotating, scaling things in 3D space.
The 3 core actions, along the X, Y, and Z axis.
And managing complexity, hierarchy and organization.
Absolutely crucial for anything beyond simple objects. Understanding parenting, where a child object follows its parent but can still move on its own. Grouping things together, Ctrl plus G is your friend, to move them as one unit. And using the outliner and layers to keep your scene organized and manageable.
Let's zoom in on modeling specifically.
Yeah.
What are the main ways you actually build 3D objects in Maya?
Maya offers 3 main approaches. The most common, most versatile is polygon modeling. Directly pushing and pulling those vertices, edges, and faces.
Got it.
Then there's NURBS modeling, uses mathematical curves, great for precise, smooth shapes, often used in product design. And subdivision surfaces, where you start with a simpler polygon mesh and Maya smooths it out, great for organic forms.
And within polygon modeling, what are some common techniques beginners should learn?
Box modeling is a classic starting point. You begin with a simple shape like a cube and just gradually refine it. Add detail by extruding faces, moving vertices. Using the Insert Edge Loop tool to add more edges gives you more control in specific areas. And extrusion, pulling out new geometry from faces or edges. We saw that in the architectural tutorial for making walls.
Right. Our sources also stressed good topology, the underlying structure of the mesh. Why is clean topology so important?
Ah, topology. It's essential. Good topology means your model looks clean, sure, but more importantly, it deforms correctly when you animate it, and it textures properly without weird stretching. Best practices: aim for simple geometry. Use mostly 4-sided polygons, quads. Avoid songons, polygons with 5 or more sides. They cause problems.
Gotcha. Quad's good, tongon's bad.
Pretty much. And think about edge flow, how the edges run across the surface, especially in areas that need to bend. And always test how it looks when smoothed. Pressing the 3 key is a common way to preview that. Catch problems early.
Okay, so you've built your model. It's got good topology, but it probably looks pretty plain, right? Gray and boring. That's where texturing and shading come in.
Exactly. Texturing is about adding the surface detail, color, patterns, images. Shading defines how that surface interacts with light. Is it shiny, rough, metallic? But before you texture effectively, you need to do UV mapping.
You describe UV mapping as basically unfolding a 3D object flat, which really helps visualize it, like flattening a cardboard box to draw on it.
That's a perfect analogy. Like this flat 2D map, the UV map, lets you paint or place textures accurately onto the 3D model so they don't stretch or have seams in weird places when you fold it back up, metaphorically speaking.
Okay, makes sense.
Once the UVs are done, you apply materials. These define the surface properties. Base color, obviously. Bump maps to simulate fine surface detail without adding geometry. Roughness maps to control shininess. And the Hypershade editor in Maya is where you build and tweak all these material settings.
So you've got form, you've got surface detail. Now, how do you make it look like it actually exists in an environment? Lighting, right?
Right. Lighting is key for mood, depth, realism. Maya simulates real-world lighting. You've got different light types. Point lights, like a bare bulb. Directional lights like the sun, parallel rays, spotlights, focused cones of light, area lights simulating softer sources like light from a window, gives nice soft shadows.
And Arnold, the renderer, has that skydome light too, for environment lighting.
Exactly. Skydome lights are fantastic. You often use them with HDRI's high dynamic range images to wrap a realistic environmental light and reflections around your scene. Super effective.
Okay, so scene's lit. Now you hit render.
Pretty much. Rendering is the process of calculating the final 2D image or animation from your 3D scene. Arnold is physically based, meaning it tries to simulate real light and material physics.
So it looks more realistic.
Yeah, aiming for photorealism. Key things you work with are the A-standard surface shader, that's Arnold's main material shader, the lights we talked about, camera settings like depth of field or motion blur, and the render settings themselves, controlling resolution, quality sampling, things like that.
Rendering can take a while though, right? Especially complex scenes. Any tips to speed it up?
Oh yeah, render time is always a consideration. Lowering sample rates in the render settings is a direct way, but can reduce quality. Using Arnold's adaptive sampling helps it focuses calculations where needed.
Smart.
Also, just simplifying your scene, less complex models, fewer objects if possible, optimizing texture sizes, huge textures eat memory and slow things down. Every bit helps.
Okay, let's shift gears to the really dynamic part. Animation, bringing things to life. What are the basics in Maya?
The core is keyframe animation. You set poses for your objects or characters at specific points in time on the timeline.
Like pose A at frame 1, pose B at frame 20.
Exactly. Maya then interpolates, figures out the movement between those key poses to create smooth motion when you play it back. The timeline is your main view for placing and timing these keyframes.
And for really fine-tuning that movement, getting the nuance right, you mentioned the graph editor.
Ah, the graph editor. That's where animators spend a lot of time. It shows you curves representing how animation properties like position, rotation, scale change over time.
Cool.
Yeah, visual curves. By manipulating these curves and their handles, called tangents, you get precise control over speed, smoothness, acceleration, deceleration, the real feel of the motion. Linear tangents mean constant speed. Spline tangents give smooth ease and ease out. Step tangents create instant changes.
Sounds powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for characters especially, rigging is essential before animation.
Absolutely. Rigging is building the control system, the digital puppet skeleton. It's made of joints, like bones.
Okay.
Animators don't usually grab the joints directly. They use user-friendly controls, often simple curves or shapes called controllers linked to the joints. This makes animating much more intuitive.
And you mentioned FK and IK.
Right, kinematics. Forward kinematics, FK, is like rotating your shoulder, move your whole arm down the chain. Inverse kinematics, IK, is like planting your hand somewhere. And Maya figures out how the elbow and shoulder need to bend to reach it. Useful for things like footsteps.
So the basic rigging workflow.
Create the joints, the skeleton. Bind the skin, meaning attach the model's surface mesh to the skeleton so it deforms. Add the controllers animators will use. And then test the rig to make sure it moves correctly and doesn't break.
Once you have a rigged character or object, what are some guiding principles for actually animating it well?
For characters, understanding movement principles is key. Weight, timing, balance. Walk cycles are a classic exercise animating that repeating sequence of poses. You also need secondary motion like hair bouncing or clothes swaying as someone walks, adds life. Anticipation, the little setup movement before a big action, makes things feel more natural and powerful.
And for objects, like animating a bouncing ball.
Yeah, classic exercises. Squash and stretch on a bouncing ball conveys impact and material. Using set-driven keys lets you link attributes like maybe rotating a gear makes another part move. And again, secondary motion and overlapping action parts settling after the main movement stops makes things feel less robotic.
Moving beyond just keyframing movement, dynamics and simulations, making things react physically.
Exactly. Dynamics lets you simulate real-world physics, gravity, collisions, forces. So objects move and interact realistically without you keyframing every tiny detail. Maya's end dynamic system covers particles, rigid bodies, and soft bodies.
Particle systems sound cool: fire, smoke, rain.
Yep, all that stuff. Particle systems create lots of tiny points that follow rules. You have emitters that spawn particles, controlling rate, speed, direction.
Okay.
Then you apply forces, gravity, wind, turbulence to affect their motion. And finally, shaders to define how they look when rendered. Are they streaks, clouds, sparks?
And simulating solid objects hitting each other versus flexible things.
That's rigid versus soft bodies. Rigid bodies are for things that don't deform on impact, like billiard balls colliding. You make objects active rigid bodies so they react to physics, and passive rigid bodies for static things they can collide with.
Like the ground.
Exactly. Soft bodies are for deformable things, cloth, flags, jelly. You create them similarly, then tweak properties like stiffness or damping to control how they bend and wobble.
Maya's clearly a beast. But how does it stack up against other big names? We hear constantly about Blender these days.
That's a huge topic, yeah. Maya versus Blender, both are incredibly capable. Maya is the long-standing industry standard, especially in big film VFX studios. Blender is open source, super accessible, developing incredibly fast.
Strengths.
Maya traditionally has very deep animation rigging tools, robust simulation like Bifrost and Cloth, strong pipeline integration for large teams. Blender's catching up fast, fantastic modeling tools, great community, becoming very viable, especially for indie artists and smaller studios. The Reddit discussion did mention that exporting complex rigs between them can still be a bit tricky sometimes.
What about versus something really specialized, like ZBrush for sculpting?
They're often used together. Maya is the all-rounder, base modeling, rigging, animation, scene assembly. ZBrush is king for hyper-detailed digital sculpting, common workflow, model base in Maya, sculpt details in ZBrush, bring back to Maya for the rest.
Okay. And compared to Cinema 4D or 3ds Max?
Cinema 4D often gets picked for motion graphics, visualization. It's known for being user-friendly, great MoGraph tools. Maya typically stronger in complex character animation, VFX. 3ds Max has a stronghold in architecture, product design, game environments, especially on Windows. Maya leans more towards animation VFX pipelines, that deep customization. There's overlap, but they have different historical strengths.
They're finally Houdini. Big in VFX too.
Houdini's different. It's procedural, node-based, incredibly powerful for complex simulations, effects. Think massive destruction, water sims.
Node-based?
Yeah, everything's connected nodes that control data flow. It's less direct manipulation like Maya, more about building systems that generate the effect. Amazing for complex stuff, but can have a steeper learning curve initially. Many studios use both Maya for animation, Houdini for heavy VFX shots. That Reddit thread mentioned Houdini's node system being amazing for managing complex VFX data.
So often it's not either, but using the right tool for the job.
Exactly. Many artists and studios use multiple tools, leveraging the strengths of each.
Maya has tons built in, but are there essential tools or plugins people add to boost it?
Oh, absolutely. The core tool set is vast modeling toolkits, sculpting tools, Bifrost, animation rigging stuff, Arnold renderer, all powerful.
But plugins can add even more.
Definitely. They can streamline workflows, add specific features. Maya bonus tools free from Autodesk adds lots of handy utilities. ZBrush Go Z makes bouncing models back and forth seamless. In Skin Tools is great for painting skin weights on characters, makes rigging easier.
Any others?
Hard Mesh simplifies complex, hard surface modeling. MASH, now built in, actually is great for motion graphics. Yeti is industry standard for realistic hair, fur, feathers. RealFlow is a top choice for really advanced fluid sims. These plugins save time, automate tasks, extend Maya for specialized work.
It's always cool to see what people actually make with these tools. Any standout projects or assets that showcase Maya?
For sure. Film-wise, think Rocket Raccoon and Guardians 3, amazing character animation, rigging, fur, likely Maya heavy, Frozen 2's fluid animation, snow, water sims. Hogwarts Legacy's detailed environments. The Last of Us Part 2's super lifelike characters and facial animation. Assassin's Creed Valhalla's huge open worlds. All relied heavily on Maya for assets and animation.
Design and visualization too.
Yeah, those stunning architectural renders, like hinted at in that YouTube tutorial. Concept environments for urban planning. Maya's used across the board.
And for listeners wanting to learn or find assets, are there good resources?
Tons. For character rigs to practice animation, Advanced Skeleton is a popular tool set. There are great free rigs too, like Mary or Malcolm. Platforms like TurboSquid, Sketchfab have endless 3D models, environments.
Textures.
Textures.com, Quixel Megascans, huge libraries of high-quality PBR materials. For dynamics, plugins like Yeti or RealFlow, marketplaces like TurboSquid or RenderHub have tons of game-ready props and assets too. Lots available.
So if someone's now fired up to learn Maya, where should they start? Any recommended tutorials or courses?
Yeah, great question. Online platforms like Udemy, LinkedIn Learning have really solid Maya courses. Look for titles like Maya for Beginners, Complete Guide, or Introduction to 3D Modeling in Maya. Then you can find more advanced stuff, advanced character rigging, VFX with Bifrost, realistic rendering with Arnold. Project-based courses like Maya boot camps are also great. You learn by actually making something.
And what's the best approach to learning something this big?
Start with the basics, get comfy with the interface, core modeling, then texturing. Don't try to learn everything at once.
Right.
Then critically apply it. Do small projects. If you like animation, focus there. If VFX excites you, dive into Bifrost or particles. Specialize a bit as you go, and consistency is key. Practice regularly, even if it's just for a short time each day. Don't be afraid to experiment.
Even experienced users hit problems. Any quick troubleshooting tips for common Maya headaches?
Oh yeah, happens to everyone. General sluggishness. Try optimizing the scene size. File optimize the scene size. Check your computer specs. The script editor at the bottom often shows error messages, which can give clues.
Viewport acting weird.
Could be graphics drivers need updating. Sometimes switching between DirectX and OpenGL in the preferences helps. Resetting the panel layout.
Texture's not showing up.
Check the hypershade. Are the file paths correct? Are the UVs okay? Make sure textured mode is on and the viewport press 6 set.
Slow animation playback.
Use PlayBlast for a quick preview video instead of real-time playback. Simplify complex rigs if possible. Enable cache playback. It stores frames in RAM for smoother playback.
Things rendering black or wrong.
Double-check materials and hypershade. Are lights actually enabled and pointing correctly? Check camera settings. Usual suspects.
Well, this has certainly been a comprehensive deep dive into the world of Autodesk Maya. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have indeed. It's clear that Maya's role as really a cornerstone of 3D creation across so many industries, film, games, architecture, more, it remains incredibly significant.
So for you, our listener, we really hope this has given you a clearer picture of what Maya is, what it can do, and maybe why it's such a vital part of the whole 3D landscape. If you're feeling inspired, definitely explore the resources out there. Start experimenting. It's powerful stuff.
Absolutely. And maybe, as a final thought to leave you with, consider how the fundamental ideas and the sheer range of capabilities in a tool like Maya have genuinely shaped the visual worlds we experience everywhere in movies, games, designs.
It's foundational.
Right. And looking forward, as technology keeps pushing boundaries, what future innovations might build on this established industry standard? How will storytelling and creation evolve next? It's a pretty fascinating thing to think about.